I was actually going to play this video, but that freeze frame is quite funny. Okay, let's just play it.
Understand, it's not necessary for people to believe this information in order to weaken democratic institutions.
Action. Wait until you hear it.
Flood a country's public square.
Flood a country.
Raw sewage. You just have to raise enough questions, spread enough dirt, plant enough conspiracy theorizing.
Dramatic pause.
That citizens no longer know what to believe.
Dramatic pause.
Once they lose trust in their leaders,
pause.
The mainstream media, in political institutions, in each other.
Dramatic pause.
In the possibility of truth.
Pause.
The game's won.
As far as it goes for political disdain, Justin Trudeau is number one. He's number one. He'll be number one, I think, for the rest of my life. Justin Trudeau's number one. Obama's a close second. We've got to watch this and just break this down in terms of the absolute confession through projection of the highest order. It's pathological confession through projection. But before I do that, let me just make sure that we're actually simultaneously live on all the channels. We're good here. Good. Are we good on vivabarneslaw.locals.com? All right. Now we can break down the pathology of this confession through projection. Let us go break this down statement by statement in between dramatic pauses. Obama.
Understand, it's not necessary for people to believe this information in order to weaken democratic institutions.
It's not necessary for people to believe the disinformation or the information to weaken democratic institutions. You don't need to believe it. You just need to say it enough.
You just have to flood a country's public square.
Flood a country's public square. Hunter Biden laptop disinformation. January 6th disinformation. 2016 Russiagate hoax. Donald Trump having removed the bust of Martin Luther King from the White House. Donald Trump shithole countries. Just flood it. Flood the marketplace. Flood town square with disinformation. What happens if you do that?
With enough raw sewage.
Raw sewage.
You just have to raise enough questions, spread enough dirt, plant enough conspiracy theorizing.
Plant enough conspiracy theorizing. Raise enough dirt. Russia collusion. I mean, just only apply it mutatis mutandis to the Russiagate. Plant enough information, disinformation in the public square. Just raise enough dirt. And what happens? People don't know what to believe.
That citizens no longer know what to believe. Once they lose trust in their leaders,
what happens then?
The mainstream media,
what happens
political
then?
Institutions, in each other.
What happens then?
In the possibility of truth.
What happens, Obama?
The game's won.
Ooh, they are telling us what they are doing as they are doing it. Perfectly. The game is won. Once people can no longer even know what to believe, the game is won. Masks work? Wear masks. Masks don't work? No need to wear a mask. Conspiracy theory? Interfering with menstrual cycles. It's confirmed. Conspiracy theory causing heart issues. It's confirmed. Hey, just flood the market, flood the town square with enough dirt, enough sewage, enough conspiracy theory. Trump-Russia collusion. January 6th insurrection. Hunter Biden laptop, Russia disinformation. Donald Trump quid pro quo. Flood the market with enough rubbish and people will not know what to believe. And once you do that, the game is won. Dramatic pause. Oh, I get what you're doing there. All right, everybody. Good afternoon. I was supposed to not take the day off. We're going to have a sidebar tonight with, oh, geez, what's her last name? Alexander. It's going to be an amazing sidebar, 7 o'clock tonight. Scandal. We were supposed to go fishing today as a family. Kids played hooky. We took the kids, out of school today, and we were going to go fishing. But Things don't always go as planned. There were some technical issues, and we couldn't get out to go fishing, and I think it might have been for the better. I got to put a remora on my body. I'll show you that video at the end of this. So we were supposed to go fishing today. It didn't happen. I said, well, what else am I going to do? Let's stream, because we were supposed to cover a bunch of stories yesterday, and we didn't get to it because the interview with François Amalaga was so damn interesting that we went on for 2.25 hours. If you didn't see yesterday's stream, go watch it. A lot of people watched it, at least on Rumble. You put François Amalaga's name in YouTube. I'm shocked that it didn't get demonetized, but it sure as hell is getting throttled, I think would be the word. It got graffitied with COVID, the COVID banner. To get more COVID information, go to the CDC website, the same one that's been right and wrong, depending on when you ask them the same question. François Amalaga he's Cameroonian, moved to Quebec, and has become the most famous, the most infamous COVID-19 lockdown measures freedom fighter that you've probably never heard of. And I say it, and I'll say it again, the biggest flattery that I can get as a podcasting internet interviewer guy is when people stay on much longer than the time they said they would stay on or that they had allotted. And François said he had 45 minutes to do an interview, and we went on for 2.25 hours, and he talked about studying math, getting a master's in math, doing the PhD work, and being on the verge of getting a PhD, doing the thesis, starting to teach at post-secondary high school university, Cégep in Quebec. And then COVID hit, and it doesn't make sense to him, and he starts fighting for what he believes in. And at one point, it was a great quote. I'm gonna have to go clip the section. He says he goes to the police station. He says, "Arrest me because I'm not abiding by these COVID measures. I'm not wearing a mask. I'm not respecting a curfew. Arrest me, because the woman I love is freedom, and she's in that cell. And if you lock me up, you're going to lock me up with my lover, freedom, because she's not out there." It was phenomenal. So go watch it if you haven't seen it. But I was supposed to cover some stories yesterday, never got around to it, and I said I'll do it today. And just to give you a heads up for the rest of the week, tomorrow, Yay on Me Park is coming on at 1:00. For anyone who's interested, I got to get my car serviced in the morning. That's not interesting. Yay on Me Park, North Korean escapee defector. It's going to be amazing. Scheduled for an hour. We'll see if she stays on for more than an hour. Then after that, I'm going on with Owen Schroyer on InfoWars at 5 to 5:30. Then I'm doing a podcast with JoJo, Unlearned 16, who we've been having back and forths on the Twitterverse, and she was on my channel a couple of weeks ago. And then I'm going to be on Alex Stein at 7:45-ish to 8 o'clock. And then my wife is going to say enough internet for the day. So that's what's on for tomorrow. Tonight, we got a sidebar, and we've got a show today. We're going to talk about Epstein having been maybe gated. I mean, the question is now, we make the joke that someone's going to Epstein themselves, but what do we say about what happened to Epstein? I think we have to start saying, he was potentially Bill Gated. Jokes aside, we're now discovering that maybe it's not the best idea to try to blackmail, extort the most powerful man on earth, or sorry, not the richest man on earth. So some news with that. Some news out of Canada, which we're going to start with on YouTube, because I want everyone to hear this before we go on over to Rumble. They're just going to expand medical assistance in dying to the mentally ill. We're just going to expand medical assistance in dying, aka euthanasia, aka, if you asked other regimes, mercy killings. We're going to expand it to the mentally ill. Now we're going to expand it to minors. Oh, and now, according to a poll, 1/4 of all Canadians approve of the idea of medical assistance in dying, euthanasia, mercy killing for the homeless, if that's the reason why someone wants to end their life. The slippery slope to hell is paved in purported good intentions, but it's the evil that cloaks itself in benevolence. We'll get to that. What else was there? Kari Lake lost her case. No big surprise there. No real rocket science, but we'll talk about that. And, oh, yeah, that's right. Injured by a jibby jab? Injured by a mandatory jibby jab? Don't worry, Canadians. Your trip to the hospital is free. We're going to waive the ambulance fee. We're going to start with that story because it's so bloody atrocious. But before we do that, people, Before we do that, you might have seen as you started the stream, the little thing on the top right, this stream contains a sponsor, because it does. And there's a funny story behind this, because I'm experimenting with this now. There's a funny story behind this. Genucell. So this is the sponsor. Now, a lot of you know I'm not one to care about my physical appearance at the superficial level. I don't care what my skin looks like. I don't want to put on foundation. I don't put on makeup. I like my hair, yes, and I like being healthy, yes. But some people do care what they don't want to get old. They don't like the crow's feet. They don't like all this stuff. Okay. Genucell, I was on with Dr. Drew yesterday, and Dr. Drew was telling me about the retinol thing that firms up the skin. I was like, okay, well, I have this bottle that they sent me that, my family's been using, but I don't care about this stuff. I'm going to do an experiment with it. But the bottom line, Genucell, it's an American company, and it's got an amazing story. This Egyptian pharmacist, I'm not making this up. I was on the phone with him. I said, I got to get comfortable with your product if I'm going to do a sponsored video about it. Egyptian pharmacist comes to America, makes his own homemade recipes for skin firming products, offers them to some of his clients at his pharmacy, and they love them so much, they all start asking him to prepare the orders, and he's turned it into a business of a product that he put the blends together on his own and turned it into a business. And so people are into this. People like, looking young, having good makeup and all this stuff, and a good quality product made in America, the sponsor of the New Jersey Devils, Genucell. So if you go to genucell.com and you use promo code VIVA, you're going to get 70% off their most popular package. But here's where this, okay, remember I've been saying, guys, do you notice my bags under my eyes? Do you notice I look different? That's the question. I'm doing this for science, not because I care about wrinkles, although I'd rather get rid of my end of the world furrowed brow wrinkle. If I'm going to do a test, I've used this retinol stuff now, ultra retinol, twice or 3 times. We'll see. You will tell me if I start looking younger, more vibrant, et cetera, et cetera. But bottom line, it's a great company, made in America, kind of the American dream, and people like it, people love it, and I thought it was a great story and a great company to work with. Okay, I still look Canadian. Does that mean, given what's going on in Canada, KC985, I'm not sure that that's a compliment anymore. Canada. Oh, Canada. Genucell.com, promo code VIVA, 70% off that package you see there. And that's it. I still look Canadian. I don't know if it's a compliment anymore. Let's start with, it's disgusting. It's disgusting. It's an old story, but it's disgusting. It comes out of CBC. Tabarnouche. Tabarnouche, c'est où cet esti d'article? L'article de journal. Where is it? Dudes, did I not bring this? I have like one job to do, and I didn't bring this one up. It was CBC, Nova Scotia, ambulance, wave, fee, vaccine. Let's just, here we go, guys. It's so thoughtful, and it's so polite. It's something that can only be done in Canada. The article is 2 years old, or a year and a half. That's about 2 years old. Bear that in mind. The fact that this article is 2 years old makes it even more shocking, given what's happened over the last 2 years, given that this is what the decision-making was 2 years ago. CBC News. Like, this is stuff where you say, how did I miss this? It's because I don't watch CBC News, and I suspect, they report on it. The CBC reports on it, buries it digitally, so they can say later on down the line, the same thing with their toxic face mask story. Well, we reported on it, but we buried it and no one saw it. Listen, it's a joke. It's a Babylon Bee sick frickin' joke. I was going to swear, but I'm not going to swear just yet. NS means Nova Scotia. Nova Scotia to waive ambulance fees for people who have adverse reactions to COVID vaccines. Do you just understand that for 1 second, people? Understand that for 1 second. You go get the jibby jab. You have an adverse reaction that is so flipping severe, you need to be rushed to a hospital by ambulance. Don't worry. That $165, it's free. We'll waive it. We'll waive it for you. Thank you for sacrificing your... It's It's evil. I mean, it's evil. There is no other way to describe it other than evil. Change follows several people being told their cases weren't COVID emergencies. At first, they ignore you, then they minimize you, then they fight you. It's the same thing. Those are not COVID emergencies. It's not related to the COVID. I mean, I know you're having an anaphylactic shock, or your face is going numb, or you're having a stroke, and it's within short proximity of having gotten the jab. Nothing to do with it. Piss off. Pay for your own ambulance. Oh, what's that? There's too many of them. We better make this policy. Sarah Lind was still in the vaccine clinic when she knew something wasn't right. I would love to know how amplified this article was at the time. The Dartmouth, Nova Scotia resident had her first COVID-19 vaccine a few weeks ago. This is 2 years old. And despite knowing this, and wait until you see the statistics cited in this article, they continued to push this for another 2 years. Within minutes of getting her dose of Moderna, she was on the floor, unable to move. Walk it off. Oh, sorry, you can't walk it off? Well, let's take you to the hospital. Don't worry. The ambulance ride is on us. Her body was overheated, and then she broke out in cold sweats and her vision was blurred. I didn't even make it 15 minutes from getting the shot before you're allowed to leave, she said. As the muscle parts blocked up, staff at the clinic called an ambulance. She was brought to the hospital. She was there for a few hours before starting to feel normal again and was discharged. No biggie, guys, no biggie. Go into shock, become paralyzed, cold sweats, but you're fine afterwards. I mean, whatever that massive immunological response was, forget about it. Schedule your second shot, guinea pig. Unexpected ambulance bill. Lynn said she was extremely exhausted for the next 4 days. That's just nothing. That's nothing. It's just, you're tired because your body went into some form of shock from a foreign substance being into it. Walk it off, sleep it off, you'll be fine. But here's a bill. It was like I got hit by this truck and just like drained all my energy. It was crazy. As her energy increased, so too did her frustration levels. Last month, the provincial government announced ambulance fees would be waived for anyone with a COVID-related emergency. This is not the Babylon Bee, people. This is July 2021, Canada. Let me just see here. June 15, June 2021. The move was intended to ensure people who needed help called for it as soon as possible without worrying about the $146 bill. God, the government is really thinking about you. When they experiment on you in real time and you have a reaction to it, don't worry about it. You don't have to pay for the hospital bill. She was told her situation didn't qualify as a COVID emergency. Let me see something here. A COVID-related emergency. Oh, I get it. It wasn't a COVID-related emergency. It was a COVID jab-related emergency. Let's see. Here we go. But when Lynn asked about her feeding way, she was told her situation didn't qualify as a COVID emergency. Angela Seaboyer was told the same thing. Another person who had an adverse reaction. I knew this isn't normal. The Annapolis Valley resident started having a reaction to her first dose of AstraZeneca a day after getting the shot. Her symptoms escalated quickly with a crushing headache, followed by a burning sensation in her legs. Totally normal. Then her stomach became upset and she had difficulty breathing. I knew this isn't normal. Something's going on. An ambulance was called. She was taken to the hospital. She was discharged with orders to return if her headache got worse or if her other symptoms returned. She found herself short on energy and easily tired for the next few days. Eventually, she returned to the hospital, although this time she drove herself. Are they going to pay for her gas too? When she found out the bill was coming for the ambulance ride, she assumed she wouldn't have to worry about it, that the fee would be waived. She found out otherwise. Do you see what is going on here right now, by the way? I've talked about the fake news trifecta of strategy: ignore, demonize, or ignore, distract, demonize. We're at the distraction stage here. Because remember what they're trying to make you do is feel grateful for the fact that the costs of your adverse reaction to the jab are being covered. Feel grateful for that after we make the frustration so that you ignore the fact that you were damaged by the jab. They said because I didn't test positive for COVID, it wasn't COVID related. I didn't understand that. Listen to this, people. This is where they bury the lead, because it wasn't even part of the article. Wait, listen to this. As of June 4, this is June 4, 2021, 25 million COVID vaccines had been administered in Canada, with adverse reactions reported by 6,864 people, according to the federal government. That equals about 3 people out of 10,000 who have reported adverse events. Don't you love the way they say it also? That's 3 people out of 10,000. Why don't you say 1 out of 3,000? Because it sounds more shocking. Why don't you say 30 out of 100? Why don't you say 300 out of 1,000,000? That sounds like you're diluting it even more. 3 out of 10,000 who reported adverse events to the jab. You know how many people reported hospitalization from the Rona under certain age brackets? And if you look at the new Israeli study, where they apparently report 0 deaths under 50 from the Rona, that's not me, YouTube. That's you. That's an Israeli study. 3 out of 10,000 reported adverse reactions to the jab. There was so much of it that the province graciously decided to waive the ambulance fee for those who had to be rushed to the hospital because of an adverse reaction to the jab. They were pleased to learn of the change in the policy. Oh, I love Big Brother. Thank you for paying for my medical bills. Thank you, Don Carleone, for paying for my crutches after you just shot me in the kneecaps. It's a... Don't swear. Don't swear. It's a gosh darn sick joke. It would be comical if it weren't so tragic. I'm glad that you waived You know what? I would pay $10,000 for that ambulance fee if it would allow someone to sue the government, if it would allow someone to sue the pharma company. Imagine that. We're grateful that they've covered our fee now. It is a crime against humanity that these people were experimented on in real time, unbeknownst to them, because as Daniel Housefather explained, the pharma companies were bypassing ordinary studies, ordinary safety protocol. They were bypassing ordinary manufacturing production protocol because they didn't have time to do the research, the safety tests. They didn't have time to ensure quality control in the production because the world needed shit, and we just needed to put that shit in their body. Oh, shit, I just swore. That's an article. It's an actual article from 2021. Back then, they knew people were reporting 3 in 10,000. That's 1 in 3,333. And that's what they were reporting. And we know that reports are wildly underrepresentative of actual adverse reactions. So many people were complaining about it that Nova Scotia, as a policy, actually had to say, we're getting a lot of complaints here that people are getting sick and have to go rush to the hospital after the jibby jab. Let's throw a couple of bucks their way and pay for the ambulance fee, and maybe they'll leave us alone. Well, they can't sue us. They can't sue the pharma companies, so they're up shit creek without a paddle. But let's just, here's some crutches. Sorry about what I did to your knees. Oh, don't worry, Casey. We're gonna, you know what? Segue. As if this is not representative of that just said, by the way, for the podcast version, people who are watching this on podcast or listening to it on podcast, watching it with their ears, this chat says, Canada now offering free euthanizations. I have to pull up another video now that you reminded me. That's the jab rubbish out of Canada. It would be a sick joke if it weren't so bloody tragic, and it's bloody tragic. Stay tuned, by the way. Next week, there's going to be some very, very interesting interviews on the channel on a related topic. I want to get to the other aspect of the fall of Canada. But first, Master Malrubius in the house with a super chat. And it'll allow me to do my standard intro disclaimer. What are we now? 25 minutes into the stream. Master Malrubius, $5 Rumble Rant says, super chat says, leading a petition to change O Canada to uh-oh Canada. What are you doing? I would just go with O, OH, Canada. O Canada. Master Malrubius, thank you for the super chat. Bill Gates' version of Epstein should be blue screened. How about crashed? No, Bill Gates crashed Epstein. That's Daniel Whittle for a £5. Now, standard disclaimers, and I forgot to say them. No medical advice, no legal advice, no election fortification advice. We will be talking about Kari Lake's election loss. We're talking about the jibby jab, but I don't give medical advice because I'm not a doctor. I am just, I'm still a lawyer. Just don't practice anymore. With half a functioning brain, at least. Maybe 3/4 of a functioning brain, and I can put 2 and 2 together. Let's see what we got on Rumble. We got these things called Rumble rants on Rumble. YouTube takes 30% of those super chats. Rumble ordinarily takes 20%, but for the rest of the year, they're taking 0%. So 100% of what you see there, Finboy Slick, thank you very much, 100% goes to the creator. At the end of 2023, 2024, they're going to revert to taking the 20%, but it's still a better cut that goes to the creator, better to support a platform that supports free speech. Canada's so generous. Next, they'll offer free delivery of MAID kits with full money-back guarantee. You joke, Finboy Slick. We're on the way to that. I'm so glad that my Rumble rant wasn't even about your secret-smelling mullet. Let's fix that. Finboy Slick, thank you very much. And I think you had some good ones from yesterday as well. Yeah, that's it. Pay for your ambulance. So thoughtful and so thoughtful, because Canada is a polite society of thoughtful people who are so thoughtful, they want to expand. It's state-sanctioned murder at this point. I can't even call it euthanasia, because it went from, for the terminally ill in excruciating pain with no hope for betterment of their terminal condition, to the mentally ill, to minors. They want to expand it to the minors as well. And now, according to a poll, 27% of Canadians think it's okay to, homeless people, if that's their reason to euthanize themselves. Hitler, it was called, I think it was called Action 4 or Action 4. It had Action, AKTION, with a number. They called it mercy killings, because the mentally ill, when you would euthanize them, it would be for their own benefit. And, the other people who just didn't know that they needed to consent to being euthanized. And for those who say that this is a hyperbolic, offensive comparison, first of all, tough shit. I'm actually well beyond the point now of trying to placate people's sensitivities for not wanting to admit reality. But for those who say that it's callous, not equivocal, it's not there yet. Mental illness, for those of you who are not lawyers or who have no legal training, vitiates consent for contracts. You cannot contractually engage with someone when they're in a state of mania. Mental unwellness, mental illness has been a legal basis for annulling contracts, for vitiating consent. How then can someone who is mentally ill consent to euthanasia if the very basis of the reason for which they are purportedly consenting to euthanasia, in the ordinary, at least sometimes in law, would result in vitiating their consent to contract in the first place? You can't. And so what do you end up having if you support euthanizing people for reasons of mental illness? You have state-sanctioned murder. You can call it mercy killing. You can call it euthanasia. You can call it medical assistance in dying. You can call it MAIDS if you're too much of a coward to actually call it what it is. That is what it is. How can a minor consent to euthanasia when a minor cannot consent in law? So call it what it is, understand what it is, and if you find the comparison offensive, it's because it is offensive. But now let's just read this from the National Post, and I will qualify this with a caveat. I don't believe the polls in general. We're in a situation where if the poll is right, gosh darn it, is Canada damned. And if the poll is not right, gosh darn it, is Canada damned, because you have a government-subsidized media that's trying to make this narrative palatable to Canadians. And I'll explain what I mean by that in a second. 1/3 of Canadians fine with prescribing assisted suicide for homelessness. This is National Post. This is not May 16, 1939. This is May 16, 2023. Roughly the same number told a poll they were fine with approving MAID for someone whose only affliction was poverty. Hey, people. No, the slippery slope is a fallacy. It's not a fallacy. It's a strategy. It's not a fallacy. It's a reality. The slippery slope is not a fallacy. It's a tactic when what you want to do is get to that dark side of the cliff, push, pull back, push. And the other way, it's just a reality. You get used to abuse, and then your threshold for more abuse is that much more attenuated. A homeless encampment in Vancouver. Well, not for long if the government has its way. Not for long if the Canadians have their way. Oh, but the homeless people, they're mentally ill. They can't object to euthanasia. Forget consent. I mean, we're going to get there. A mentally ill person cannot object to euthanasia. 1/3 of Canadians are apparently fine with prescribing assisted suicide for no other reason than the fact that the patient is poor or homeless. We're going to see how many people were in this poll. I bet you it's 1,065. The results were contained in a recent poll. I'm just going to click on it. Let's see here. Is this going to tell us how many people? Oh my God, my eyes are so weak now. Okay. Generally speaking, guys, this is the question. Do you support or oppose allowing a person to seek medical assistance in dying in Canada if the conditions explained below are met? Be eligible for health services funded by the federal government. This is a very confusing question. Be at least 18 years old of age, fully competent, have a grievance and irremediable mental condition, make a voluntary request for medical assistance in dying, is not the result of outside pressure, give informed consent. This is one question. My goodness, this question is not clear. Be eligible for health services by the federal government or a province. Be at least 18 years of age and mentally competent. Mentally competent. It's amazing. Have a grievous irremediable condition. Fine. Okay, but that's not. Oh, I'm sorry. There's more questions. That's why, because I'm an idiot. What is your personal feeling about medical assistance in dying? Okay. What is it? From what you have seen, read, or heard, are you satisfied or dissatisfied with the regulations that are currently in place in Canada to deal with the issue of medical assistance in dying? At this point, only an adult with a grievous at this point, sorry, my reading skills have never been perfect. Only an adult with a grievous and irremediable medical condition can seek medical assistance in dying in Canada. Do you agree or disagree with allowing adults in Canada to seek medical assistance in dying because of the following reasons? Poverty, homelessness, inability to receive medical treatment. Wow, don't you love it? The inability. It's not inability to receive medical treatment, whoever phrased these questions. It's the incapacity of the socialized healthcare system to provide the medical treatment. Describing the same thing, but just sort of attributing the blame somewhere else. Mental illness, disability, and we know the stats. Now, how many people? The typical word is respondents. They're not going to tell us how many people were asked. All right, well, we'll go back. We'll see if the article. Starting in March, Canada, yada, yada, yada. Research Co. found that 73% of poll respondents favored the current regime and only 16% opposed it. That is sickening. That is sickening. Pollsters also found not insignificant numbers of Canadians who favored assisted suicide in cases where no medical condition of any kind was present. Mercy killings, people. 27% said they would be fine with legalizing that person's access to MAID if their only affliction was poverty. Are we going to see how many respondents were in here? How many? How many? I don't think we're going to find the number of people polled. Wow, they don't even tell us the number of people polled in this one. Let me just see if I can't. 30 seconds to see if we can find it. It's typically like 1,000 when they call Friday. They call in an afternoon, and then see who picks up their landline. Wow, we're not getting. They don't give the numbers of the amount of people polled here. It seems. All right, well, that's Canada, people. Oh, no. But, I'm the heartless bastard for thinking that, it should only be used in the most exceptional cases for terminal illness. Oh, I'm a heartless bastard. Who am I to say that a mentally ill person can't consent to death? Oh, I'm a heartless bastard for saying, holy shit, do we now see the problem? I see some of the consistent trolls. Welcome in, people. What I love is that in order to comment, you have to be a subscriber because I put it on subscriber only mode. So the people who, even the trolls are subscribers. So congratulations, you've played yourself. That's Canada. And now that might be the time for us to move on over to the Rumbles. Talk about Kari Lake, Jeffrey Epstein. And I said, Big Pete, happy belated birthday. Also waiting patiently on the sidebar potential. Big Pete, thank you very much. Birthday was good. Had a nice steak. Okay, let's go to Rumble. It's I mean, gross is an understatement. It's inhumane. And you see what's going to end up happening here. I mean, set aside the organ donor issues. You're going to have a black market if you don't already have, or at least a financial incentive to collect the body parts of the people who are now being pushed into euthanasia. The question of the inability to receive, what was it called? The inability to receive medical treatment. No, it's the incapacity of the system to provide it. And what better way for a government to net a profit on both ends? Reduce healthcare costs by killing the ill. Oh, no, well, it's too expensive for us to treat your otherwise treatable medical condition. Let's make your life so bloody miserable that you decide to end your own life because you can't find lodging, which has happened. You can't find adequate treatment for your multiple chemical sensitivity, which has already happened. Now, hey, the homeless. And then, so if that poll is accurate, well, gosh darn it, hell is what you make on earth. And if that poll is what I suspect it is, they cherry pick their sample pool so they can fabricate a narrative. Well, gosh darn it, enjoy the hell that you're going to inherit up in Canada. You're trying to condition this Canadian population into being okay with the idea of euthanizing Canadians because of homelessness, poverty, miserable life because the socialist government makes it miserable. Here's a solution: death, and we'll be happy to administer it. Oh, what's that? Population is going down. People aren't having enough babies because they're out there now promoting schmortion. Oh, well, there's an easy cure for that. Open up the borders. It's an amazing, one might say it's a diabolical plan if it's indeed a plan. Otherwise, it's an amazing series of accidents, coincidences. All right, move on over to Rumble. Let's get out of here. Link to Rumble is there. Oh, I almost forgot, actually, before everyone goes there. Karima Saad, the Canadian reporter, has been following Jeremy Mackenzie's criminal trial for the harassment for the protest outside the doctor's office. She's coming on at 5:15. It's going to be good. It's going to be, I don't consider myself on the right politically. I don't think I know enough about Karima to consider her to be on the left politically, but it is going to be two people of different silos having a discussion. And she's going to give us the latest on the Jeremy Mackenzie. There's not really much news there, but it's going to be fun. So come on over to Rumble. And then after that, come on over to Locals, because we're going to have the Locals after party. Then after that, come back for 7 o'clock sidebar with Alexandra. I keep forgetting her last name now. Her first name. Let me just see here. I know I got it in the backdrop somewhere. That's not that one. Hold on. Sidebar tonight is with Rachel Alexander. Story is very interesting, and it's going to be fun to watch. So with that said, people, ending on YouTube, going over to Rumble now in 3, 2, 1. Peace out, peeps.